Yeah, we'll just give a second for people to join as we open up the meeting. And there we go. We start to have attendees joining us. Just give it another maybe 30 seconds. Okay, well, let's get started and we'll have people joining us as we go. But my name is Aaron Smith. I'm the CEO of the Energy and Environmental Building Alliance. And as always, I'm joined by Nancy Bakeman. And we're really excited to have NEXGEN Building Products with us. I got a chance to spend some time with Scott Lidberg, the CEO and founder of NEXGEN Building Products, just a couple of weeks ago in Minneapolis. And we've got him joining us today. We also have Michael Saucedo joining us from NEXGEN. And if you're like me, you've been hearing a ton about MgO, MagOx, magnesium oxide panels in the marketplace and what they can do from a sustainability perspective, from a resiliency perspective, across multiple building types that we all deal with. So we're really excited to have NEXGEN here telling us about their MAXTERRA MgO solutions. We've got room for questions. So as you'll know, we've got the Q&A section open. Put your questions there. We're going to hold those till the end of today's presentation. And with that, I think, Michael, you're leading us off. So welcome, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for hosting us, Aaron and Nancy. We're excited to be here to discuss the future of building and construction and focus in on how NEXGEN MAXTERRA MgO solutions can help us tackle the challenges posed by Build 3.0. So this is a quick overview of what we'll be covering. I'm going to start with an introduction to the Build 3.0 framework. We'll followed by a discussion on how NEXGEN MAXTERRA panels and their applications can help address the challenges. We'll also explore high productivity solutions, next steps, and then time permitting, we'll wrap up with a little Q&A.
Awesome.
All right, yeah. So we'll start by understanding what the Build 3.0 framework entails. And Build 3.0 is a groundbreaking approach to construction that addresses three key challenges faced by builders today: disaster resistance, eco-friendliness, and improved profitability through high productivity building processes. So we're talking about a world where buildings are designed to be profitable and thrive in harmony with nature and humanity. So to appreciate the significance of Build 3.0, I want to start with Build 1.0, which relied on traditional construction methods and materials. This is the on-site stick build that we used for several millennia. This approach was primarily focused on protecting inhabitants and achieving societal recognition. And as the world changed, there we go, so did the priorities in construction, and this led to the development of Build 2.0. And Build 2.0 emerged during the energy crisis in the 1970s with a focus on energy efficiency. And we saw this in the use of new energy efficient building materials as well as construction techniques. It was a step forward, but it still didn't address all of the challenges that we're facing today. And with that historical context in mind, we can appreciate the innovations that Build 3.0 brings to the table. Build 3.0 combines the best aspects of its predecessors, 1.0 and 2.0, while introducing innovative materials, processes, and techniques. This approach results in a superior inhabitant protection, environmentally friendly buildings, energy efficiency, and improved construction productivity. And one way to approach this, to fully understand the importance of Build 3.0, is by examining the impact of natural disasters on the construction industry. And the need for Build 3.0 is evident in the increasing number of natural disasters, as seen in the 18 separate billion-dollar weather and climate disasters in the United States in 2022 alone. Now, so not only does this map, or this slide of this map, paint a pretty vivid picture, I think it's also sending the message that Mother Nature wants to have something to do about the future of building. As insurance companies retreat from disaster-prone areas, and no, that's fine. The next slide. Oh, wrong direction. There we go. Yeah, and as insurance companies are retreating from disaster-prone areas, and global economic losses soared to $313 billion in 2022, it's become clear that builders must prioritize disaster resistance in their projects. Now, alongside disaster resistance, another critical aspect of Build 3.0 is its commitment to sustainable construction. We all understand that the construction industry contributes significantly to environmental pollution and climate change. So Build 3.0 aims to reduce this impact by using environmentally friendly materials and techniques and processes. And while sustainability is vital, we must also ensure the health and well-being of the occupants. So as people spend most of their time indoors, Build 3.0 focuses on creating healthy buildings by using non-toxic materials, reducing VOCs, and improving indoor air quality. And as Joseph Allen once said, healthy buildings should be the norm, not the exception. And after all, a healthy home is a happy home. Along with eco-friendliness and human health, Build 3.0 also has an impact on construction productivity. With productivity remaining stagnant for decades, Build 3.0 aims to revolutionize the sector by taking focus off of on-site techniques and instead utilizing more pre-engineered building systems and improved processes. This slide presents the next slide. There we go. This slide presents two eye-opening graphs that underscore the productivity challenges in construction when compared to other industries. We can see greater upward trends for manufacturing and non-farm productivity in both graphs as compared to the construction industry. So it's pretty clear that there's significant room for improvement. And when it comes to overcoming the challenges identified by Build 3.0, NEXGEN MAXTERRA MgO solutions, they offer numerous benefits, including fire, storm, and impact, water resistance, mold and mildew resistance, insect and pest resistance, earthquake resistance, eco-friendly and non-toxic materials, energy efficiency, and as important, ease of use for builders. We believe that by embracing these solutions, we can overcome the challenges of Build 3.0 and pave the way for a better future for the building and construction industry. Now it's my pleasure to introduce NEXGEN CEO Scott Lidberg. He's going to dive a little bit deeper into how NEXGEN MAXTERRA MgO solutions can address these challenges. Hello, Scott. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Aaron and Nancy. So a little bit about NEXGEN Building Products. I personally am a little new to this industry. I became aware of MgO Magnesium Oxide several years ago and spent a good 6 months doing some research and learning about the construction industry and how this product is used or could be used. And the more I learned about the benefits and the features of the product, things like being fire resistant, mold and mildew resistant, moisture resistance, and especially the resiliency, I struggled to figure out why it wasn't a more mainstream building product. And it seemed to me at the time that the two things to overcome were knowledge in the industry about the product. A lot of people had never heard of MgO, didn't know how it could be used or the benefits. And then the other problem to overcome was availability. Oftentimes you would need to place an order once you were convinced that you were going to use the product, and then wait 3 to 4 months for the product to arrive. So we started off with a marketing and education program last summer and expanded that throughout the year, while at the same time bringing in a significant amount of inventory into North America. We currently have the inventory located in 2 locations around the country and are working on expanding that through partners. And we'll talk a little bit about our goal with partners here coming up. So go ahead to the next slide, Steve. So I'm relatively new to the industry, but the other founders of the company are not. So our experience with MgO, using it as a sheathing, a flooring, or using it in structurally insulated panels, or what we now call high performance building panels, dates back to 2011. And we have built projects in every one of these categories here. The product is used in all of these verticals. And we have literally built hundreds of projects. So affordable housing is a big deal right now. We're involved in 2 or 3 projects in the southeast part of the country, particularly in Florida, where there is a shortage of workforce housing. And so that's kind of our focus there. The product was introduced as MaxTerra at the International Builders Show in February of this year, January, February. It is not a new product. It's a rebranded name of a product that's been around for about 6 or 7 years. It's a well-tested product, well-known product. And we're very pleased at this year's show that so many people came up to the booth and already had knowledge. They were actually looking for suppliers of this product. We're benefiting a little bit from some of the industry giants that are out there promoting the product. One of note is Huber Engineered Woods, that got into this market a couple of years ago when they purchased Extreme Green. They're now marketing their product as Exicor. And more recently, we're seeing information from organizations like GAF and DuPont as it becomes a little more mainstream. So again, MaxTerra is not a new product. It's just reintroduced under a different brand. The interesting thing about the MgO market, unlike OSB or plywood, is that there is no consistent standard or recognized standard for the creation of MgO board. So no 2 boards are necessarily the same. No 2 products are necessarily the same. And we rely heavily on the testing and the data behind that testing and certification. And here's an example of the different organizations that we are published by around North America. So both in the United States and in Canada, we have these organizations publishing our data. We continue to do testing and product improvement along the way. And every time we come up with a new foundation or a new use for the product, we go through that testing. We actually have 120 tested assemblies that our customers are able to leverage as they're building with this product. Currently, we're stocking MaxTerra in these configurations, various lengths, various thicknesses, various edge finishes are available here in the country. The most predominant ones that are being used are the 1/2 inch and then the 3/4 inch, which is used oftentimes as an underlayment. You'll see at the bottom, there's information about free sample kits being available at nextgenbp.com. If you just go to the site, the request samples is pretty much on every page. Fill in a little information and we'll send you out a sample kit. And if you're interested in building technologies comparison and MgO board versus some of the other methods that are used, this is a good chart to look at. One of the things that we're very proud of is the carbon footprint, and this is true of all MgO boards, not just MaxTerra. We like to call it carbon neutral. However, there are some studies that actually show that it absorbs carbon to the point where it is a carbon negative product as compared to a Portland cement based product, which actually creates a lot of carbon. So an interesting chart to look at. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve. As you see, or I'm sorry, to Michael. As you see here, these are some of the characteristics of the MgO board and why it's very useful in Build 3.0.
Yes, lots of exceptional features and benefits, and I'll just run through them. Some of it will be repetitive that we've already talked about it, but first step here, fire resistant. You know, been a steady increase in naturally occurring fires, and there are threatening populated areas. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And so the importance of using fire resistant materials continues to grow, becomes more important on a daily basis. Now, MaxTerra panels are non-combustible, and they are ASTM E84 Class A with a 0 fire and smoke spread index. There's a range for that Class A classification, but MaxTerra panels have a 0 rating. They're at the very best that it can that it can be. So in other words, they've been rigorously tested and they've been proven to withstand fire for longer periods of time than traditional building materials like plywood or OSB or gypsum board. Next slide would be water resistance. And now, funny thing about water is when it comes to water, we know that the relationship between the amount of water and the cost of the damage caused is not always proportional. Even a small amount of water can result in thousands of dollars in property damage. The great thing is that MaxTerra panels are impervious to water. So unlike drywall and plywood, they're not going to deteriorate or warp when they're exposed to water for short periods of time. And this should be mold and mildew. You know, with its potential to cause serious health issues, you've probably heard mold and go undetected. I'm sure you've heard mold referred to as the silent killer. The great thing about MaxTerra panels is they don't contain any organic material that can serve as a food source for mold or mildew. Unlike other building materials such as drywall and wood, which are susceptible to mold and mildew growth, MaxTerra panels are not a hospitable environment for these organisms. And in terms of testing, they exceed ASTM D3273, and they have a 0 rating for mold propagation. So super important. Insect resistant, I would say insect and pest resistant. The big one, of course, is termites, and termites and other wood-boring insects require cellulose, which is a compound that can be found in wood and drywall, as well as other building materials. Made from inorganic materials, MaxTerra panels, they don't contain cellulose, and they're not a food source for insects, pests, or rodents. Storm resistance. We saw that nasty map a few slides back. So as they become more common, we're regularly seeing the impact of severe storms throughout the country. The high density, durability, and water resistant nature of MaxTerra panels makes them highly resistant to extreme weather conditions such as hurricanes and tornadoes and high winds. Earthquake, something I have to deal with out here in California. So with its superior flexural strength compared to something like drywall or plywood, MaxTerra panels are less likely to crack or break during seismic activity. Additionally, their high impact resistance and non-combustible nature contribute to their overall earthquake resistance. Fires are something that happen after earthquakes, very common to happen after an earthquake. So the additional non-combustible nature is important. And eco-friendly. We've already talked about the degree to which the building sector contributes to carbon emissions. I don't think it's debatable. Our MaxTerra panels have a lower carbon footprint compared to traditional building materials such as Portland-based cement products, as Scott mentioned that. This is because the production process for MaxTerra panels requires less energy, it emits fewer carbon emissions, and MaxTerra panels actually absorb carbon to a degree during the curing process, which is also an added benefit. And non-toxic. You know, unlike a lot of other traditional building materials such as plywood and OSB, gypsum, cement board, MaxTerra panels don't off-gas formaldehyde or any other volatile compounds. The fact that they're made from natural materials and do not contain harmful chemicals means that they don't pose an environmental or health risk, and they can be safely disposed of in landfills, which is fantastic.
Michael, can I just ask about the no silica part of that? Because that's pretty important. We've seen some issues come up with that with both Cambria countertops recently and with some siding board products. Can you talk about how the inhalation or the lack of a problem around inhalation of silica is actually a pretty big deal for using it in the field?
Generally speaking, it's obviously a huge issue that's gone unaddressed for quite a while. I don't think that the majority of folks are aware of what's happening in terms of off gassing, or just the release of making the air around them toxic. So it's a huge point for MaxTerra and MgO in general. But again, as Scott mentioned, not all MgO boards are made the same, but so specifically for MaxTerra, the fact that we don't use any chemicals in the process of creating the boards, the panels, is incredibly important.
Great, thanks, Michael.
Of course.
Yeah, and I'll add a comment to that as well, because Aaron, you asked about using it in the field. So as opposed to a typical cement board made out of Portland, you're not going to have the carcinogens in the board that are harmful to the people that are actually building with it.
Right.
So we would still recommend, obviously, that people wear masks. You should wear masks if you're cutting anything, but the harmful materials don't exist in magnesium oxide cement as they do in a Portland cement. So whether you're cutting it with a saw blade or you're scoring it with a knife and snapping it, it's just healthier for your workforce.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, Scott. Thank you so much.
All right, so the next, this would be the last one, of energy efficiency. And we know the cost of energy continues to increase, and as it increases, energy efficiency becomes more critical for everybody. So the low thermal conductivity of MaxTerra panels means that they don't not transfer heat quickly, which can help to reduce the rate of heat transfer through the building envelope. Additionally, the high thermal mass of MaxTerra panels means that they can absorb and store heat energy, which can help regulate temperature fluctuations within the building. The R value of our MaxTerra panels exceeds the performance of traditional building materials like gypsum board and cement board and OSB. And of course, when you combine that with a panel situation, R values can be out of this universe with the right combination of other materials. Okay, so next slide. Oh, all right, I'm going to turn it back to Scott. He's going to talk a little bit about the role NexGen solutions can play in lowering costs.
Just before heading into this, I want to make a couple fun fact comments about several of those photos that we saw. There was a building that was sitting on top of what is a shake table. I think that was out at San Diego University. And that's kind of a fun video to watch. You can find that video on our website. They actually start shaking that building, and it bends to the left and it bends to the right and forward and backward and never falls apart. Kind of a fun video to watch. And then the other one is the Galveston, Texas home, where every other home around it is wiped out. That one happens to be a SIP-built home and the only one to survive that particular catastrophe. So I mentioned that we're very involved in workforce housing. The things that I'm going to talk about aren't necessarily exclusive to workforce housing, but when we're talking about, we used to call workforce housing affordable housing, and when we're talking about that, what we're really talking about with Build 3.0 is more of the lifetime cost of home ownership versus just what it costs you to buy. And so insurance is obviously one of the things that concerns a homeowner, and the cost of insurance. I happen to live in Florida, and it is now touch and go from year to year as to whether you're going to be canceled by your insurance company, whether or not you've had a claim. And the state of Florida has a special program, I believe it's called Citizens Insurance, which basically is forced insurance to allow people to have coverage for their home. I was fortunate enough to have Hurricane Ian, instead of hitting where I live, ground central, it went down the coast a few hundred miles, which is now the biggest disaster, natural disaster in the country's history. And so when we're looking at claims for water or storm damage or fire damage, obviously you want to build with a material that is resilient to those type of events. So fire resistance, water resistant, insect resistance, all of those things are something that you should be looking at when building a home. Again, the long-term cost of home ownership is more than just your principal and interest payments. It's maintenance costs, it's again, the resiliency, it's your life safety and health, and it's lower insurance costs and claims. These all factor into making a home more affordable. This is a little slide on availability. We touched on it earlier. It used to be that you did not have material available, or you had long lead times. Just represents that we have it in stock.
Yeah, and Scott, I think this is unique, right? In our conversation, you've got a huge amount of inventory here in the United States on the ground, ready to ship for people that are interested, right?
Correct. And an interesting thing about what we're doing, and we could talk a little bit, I guess, about our partnerships that we're developing. We're finding clients or partners that want to consume the product, and we're making arrangements with them to locate materials within their facility for their use, but then we also distribute from their facility. Obviously, it's expensive to warehouse around the country, especially as we're basically introducing a new product. But we've got 4 or 5 partners already that have inventory on their floor. They're consumers of the product, but if we've got a local client that wants something, they can go to those facilities and pick it up, or we'll arrange to ship it to them. So there's a lot of partnership programs we have. Our interest is primarily in promoting the use of the product. And even though we actually consume the product ourselves, we are in a position to share our data, the information on the board, the assemblies with our partners, and expand the use.
And Scott, can you just talk about that? Because I think that's kind of unique, and I'm not sure that came out, but you also manufacture a structural insulated panel with MgO on both sides of that assembly.
Yes, we do. We actually do that in a facility in Mobile, Alabama right now. We do share knowledge with our customers of the MgO product. We will be published very shortly here with Miami Dade NOA, high velocity hurricane zone, and Florida product approval. And again, our partners can utilize that data. We will do the same thing in Texas, California, and Chicago. Those are the other ones that are kind of on our list to go through the process, so that when you're going into the building officials, you've got some data and some certifications to stand behind as you introduce them to a product that they don't have any experience with. We talked a little bit about how easy it is to use, or we talked about the benefits with the safety concerns on the job site. MaxTerra does not require really any additional training. If you've got people that are used to working with plywood or used to working with OSB or any other cement board for that matter, there's really nothing new to learn. The only real difference is the type of fasteners that you use to attach the product to the building, to the structure. And then we actually have, we're working with a number of organizations, Sherwin-Williams and GAF in particular, to get products that are certified by those companies for use on MaxTerra. And those will be published on our website as well. This is just an example. Again, on our website, we've got a number of assemblies, and we will continue to add assemblies as we get them approved. We're going to publish as much data as we possibly can. This is an example of a 2-hour load-bearing firewall assembly. We've got assemblies that are rated up to 4 hours, which is interesting out in the California market. They're talking about change in strategy to trying to outrun a wildfire to shelter in place. And if you've experienced or know anything about wildfires, they're fast moving, and being able to shelter in a secure 4 hour a room with a 4 hour fire rating is much preferable than jumping into a car with a gas tank on the back and trying to outrun it. But again, just an example of one of our structures. Again, this is another one. We find that MaxTerra or magnesium oxide 3/4 inch is being used a lot as an underlayment. There's the trades are still putting the OSB down, but they're putting the MaxTerra down as the underlayment and skipping the introduction of gypcrete into the process. So the trades that you already have on site can continue the work of the next layer. You don't need to close the building in. You're not introducing moisture into an enclosed building, which is then absorbed by the rest of the building, and you need to deal with it. MaxTerra is a lighter material than gypcrete, and it has an effect all the way down to the structure of your footings. So,
Well, Scott, I was really intrigued by that part of it because, those of us that are doing a gyp pour, especially in a multifamily, I mean, you can have to wait, depending on your outside weather and your drying conditions, it can stop work for 14 days in that building. And my understanding with this product is I put it in and I'm ready to continue.
Exactly. And you could have multiple crews, one following the other, and you've got no slowdown. Again, same trades. You don't need to schedule pump trucks. You don't need, all of that wait time.
Yeah, fantastic.
We mentioned that we have a structurally insulated panel company. Many of the people on this call probably are using SIPs already. They may be using OSB or they may be using plywood. We're introducing MgO and particularly MaxTerra as an alternative to those products because it is resistant to fire. It is resistant to moisture, mold, mildew. We think it's a better option than using something that ultimately can burn, can rot. It gets its fire protection from another chemical that's added to it. We just think it's a better overall product to use. And this is actually not just related to MaxTerra or MgO. I think that SIPs in general are shown, or factory built panels or factory built homes have demonstrated over the years that there is a significant reduction in the cost of labor. And as the labor market across the country continues to be tight and a shortage of the skilled tradesmen that are required, factory built housing or panelized construction, I think, is going to become more and more prevalent around the country. And this is just an example of a creative way to use the MaxTerra or MgO product. This is actually an elevator shaft or a stairwell. And the traditional method of building these would be to lay concrete block. And you're limited each day as to how many layers of concrete block that you can lay. And then you have to come back the next day and continue on. These were actually built in a factory, loaded on a flatbed truck, and installed on site with the use of a crane. The whole thing was installed in about 5 hours and ready to rock and roll.
And Scott,
yeah,
Scott, again, I was just blown away by this because you've got something that's panelized offsite. It carries a 2-hour fire rating for your elevator shaft. It has less of a carbon footprint than the block work or poured concrete would have. I'm running out of superlatives to say here, but it's a pretty incredible thing to think about just in terms of an elevator shaft and the savings or betterment across the board.
Yeah, I watched a development being built in Florida's like where everybody seems to be moving, but it was a huge development of 4-story condo complexes or apartment complexes, and there must have been 20 or 30 different buildings going up. And they had all of these elevator shafts sticking up or stairwells sticking up. It actually looked like a birthday cake until they actually started to build the structure. So it's kind of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
These are just a couple of testimonials from some of our happy clients. Got a couple pages of these. Again, you can find these on our website. The one down in the lower right-hand corner is actually a restaurant. It built in between 2 buildings, and they were going to use containers until they figured out that containers needed to be fairly well sanitized before they could actually be used. So we imitated the look and feel of a container, but used panelized construction. All right, and then next steps as we wrap this up. Again, I mentioned that you can get a free sample kit by going to nextgenbp.com, fill out a little form. We'll send you the kit by US Postal Service. If you've got a project you'd like us to take a look at, you can contact us through any of the forms or email us. We'll review the specs with you, discuss the MaxTerra benefits, and we'll be absolutely honest with you if we don't think that the MaxTerra board is the solution to your particular need. We'll let you know that. We're looking to build trusting relationships with our customers, and just need to start that off on the right track. So we've had many people call us for projects where it's not applicable. We let them know right away, and then work with them maybe the next time around for the next project to get involved early in the design process to make it work for them.
Fantastic. Scott, I know in talking to you that some of the big difference is in the finest quality product available. And can you talk a little bit about your sourcing journey on finding the finest quality product, and then kind of your ambition for NexGen and MaxTerra going forward in North America?
All right. So one of the first things that people ask us about when we're talking about MgO is, where do you get it? And currently, all of the product in the United States is pretty much made in China. China happens to have the purest source of magnesium oxide in the world. We have magnesium oxide here in the United States. It needs a little more processing than what they do over there. There is deposits up in Canada that we can access, and then in Brazil, and we'll probably start bringing some of those online as we ultimately build a plant here in the United States. But as far as our relationships with the factories over in China, we actually have 2 factories that make our product. We have a strict quality control process over there. The factories are inspected or audited 4 times a year. So once a quarter, there is an inspector that goes in and verifies that the product is being made according to the published processing plan. And then there's post-production quality control that goes on before it leaves the factory. When it comes here, we randomly pull samples and test the samples here to validate for ourselves that it meets the requirements that we've established. in order to get the board certified, we actually have to go through a lot of testing. And the two organizations we typically use are Intertech and QAI. And there's a standard for cement board that we need to follow. So flexural strength and diaphragm tests and freeze thaw tests and nail pull tests, and we submit samples to them. They run them through the process. It takes this last round of testing, I think, for 5 months. And it's just something that we're perpetually involved in. So that's the process for getting the board. Again, it's not like plywood, gypsum, or OSB, where there's just kind of a industry accepted standard. There may be at some point, but companies like us and like Huber are investing heavily in raising the bar for the rest of the industry.
And Scott, from an installation side, really the only critical thing, and I think this may have been missed in the past with MgO, is to use that stainless steel fastener, right?
Yes, stainless steel or ceramic coated, either one is fine. The concern you're talking about, if people were to Google MgO, the first thing they're going to find out about is a Danish study that was done some 15 years ago, where the board that they were using had a high chloride content, wasn't managed. There were, and I think the technical term is unbound molecules of chloride that ended up weeping and causing some problems. And those are the things that are managed through the quality control process. We have a strict first in, first out process for our raw materials. So when materials come in, they're put in, they're dated. We know when they came in. Those are the ones that are used first. We have absolute batch control. So we know the date, the shift that any individual board was manufactured on. We have traceability back to the factory. Also, those things are required to get the ESR. So
fantastic. Well, Scott, I know across EVA, I'm hearing more and more people talking about magnesium oxide. Are you seeing the same interest across North America?
We are. It was, and we're pleasantly surprised when we attended the show in Las Vegas. The year before, we did not have quite the turnout that we had this year. But we didn't have a time in the booth where we were really without people asking questions. And the thing that was most impressive was they already knew about it. And they were educated enough to ask the right kinds of questions. We also had visitors from a couple of large distributors that we're in conversations with, because they're recognizing that this product is going to become more mainstream. They're going to need a source to distribute it to their clients around the country.
Fantastic. I've got a question from our audience, Scott and Michael, that I'll post you, and I think it's worth reiterating. Is MAXTERRA made of pure MgO, or are additional chemicals introduced to make it mold resistant, improve its fire resistance? And is MgO flammable?
So everything eventually is flammable. If you put enough heat to it, it will burn. It is fire resistant. A typical home fire will not burn MgO. There's a video on our website that's pretty interesting, where they actually have a fire department up in Canada. Our partners are up in Calgary, but they're stuffing pallets inside of a building. Half of it is made with OSB and half of it is made with MgO, and then they've got an MgO building next to it. And so you've got a very hot fire that you can actually put your hand on the outside of the building and not get burnt. As far as chemicals that are added to it, it's a cementitious product, so it's made from a slurry. There are a couple other products that are in it. It is not chemically treated to create its fire resistant. The other components are 5 layers of scrim, a combination of different types of mesh that go into it to give it its overall strength. But it's not a chemical additive that makes it mold and mildew resistant. It's basically inorganic, so there's nothing to feed on. and we're talking about the environmental mode. We're not talking about environmental mold. We're talking about the stuff that actually hurts people.
Great. I know we had a question come up on sound transmission control that I think your team was answering, but I don't want to ask that here. Perhaps you can follow up, or data's coming on sound transmission control or STC ratings for assemblies. Do you know off the top, do you have any of that, or would you rather get back to that person?
Well, we're going to have to get back to that person, but there's a number of methods that we use. One is a sound abatement mat. Another is what we're recommending to a developer down in Texas is a green glue, which is basically a rubberized adhesive in between the two. We're in the process with our latest round of testing of actually getting the acoustical testing. So we'll have more data on that shortly.
Just a question to reiterate on I know, Michael, you talked about the ASTM E84 and the product data sheet being non-combustible, but under the testing of E84, and it is rated for a 1 hour, 2 hour, up to 4 hour fire assembly rating. That's correct, right?
Let me take that one, Michael. So board is, so technically any board does not get a fire rating. A board is either fire resistant or it's not, or it's non-combustible or it's combustible, and MaxTerra MgO fits into that category. It's actually the assemblies that get the rating. So it's got to be the sheathing, the studs, whether they're light gauge aluminum or wood, and what do you have behind it. So if you're using Rockwell or you're using polystyrene or whatever assembly you actually get tested is what gets the rating.
Great answer. So the short form answer is it is non-combustible, right?
Correct.
But your 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour ratings come from an entire assembly rating, just like an STC rating would.
Correct.
Great. We actually got a great question here. We talked about the demand that you're seeing in North America, but one of our attendees wants to know, are you marketing globally?
We are not currently marketing globally. We have had discussions with a company in India that wants us to ship product to them to install on their light gauge steel and then ship that to the United States. That's early on discussions. We have talked to a company in Great Britain that wants to utilize it. We actually do have customers, and this is not globally, but we do a lot of work down in the Caribbean. Especially in areas that are subject to hurricanes and to earthquakes. Currently building a hotel in St. John's, which I hope to visit here very shortly.
I'll go with you.
Yeah, I may need to spend a few days there, but I've been there once. It's beautiful. But I did that pre-construction and we're about halfway through the project now.
Fantastic. You mentioned the MaxTerra sample kit. I put a link to that website, but can you tell us what's included with that? I know I've been driving around in my F-150 with my sample, showing it off, but tell us more about what's included in that.
Yeah, there we go. We have a picture of it. So there are 3 pieces of MaxTerra that measure 8.5 by 11. Conveniently, that's the same size as a piece of printed literature, and they all fit nicely into the box. We sent several pieces. So number one, you can see the difference between a 3/4 inch and a 1/2 inch board, but then you can play around and attempt to destroy one of the 1/2 inch samples. You can nail through it, you can screw into it, you can score it and break it and still have a sample available. The other documents that are in there, there's a little card that tells you what's in the box and a little information. There's information on subflooring, information on underlayment, information on sheathing, and then just an overall product overview document.
Awesome. Scott, if people are looking for additional information, who's the best person to get in touch with at NexGen about the MaxTerra product?
Yeah, there's a couple ways to do that. Shannon Ross runs our client success team, and she can be reached at sross@nextgenbp.com. Another way to reach out to us would be just to go to any page on the website and fill out a contact me form. Or you can call our toll-free number at any time.
Great. Well, anything else that we haven't covered or that we've forgotten that you want to cover? I'll open it back up, Michael or Scott.
I did want to mention our knowledge base that we just launched. It's
that's right.
yeah, it's in the early stages. I think we have about 70, around 70, maybe 100 questions and answers, but that will continue to grow. And we want that to be a resource for anybody that has questions about.
Yeah, Michael,
MgO.
that's like an FAQs page on your website, right? So you can
Yeah, like on steroids, right? So you can go
Yeah.
there and you can type it in, and it'll give you all of the responses that kind of match what you're typing in, as well as you can search by categories. So we'll continue to add to that, and again, hoping that it will be a good resource for folks.
Yeah. Hey, we have one request. Do you have representatives that can come and give this presentation at my office? So obviously that's good. Probably online is always the best, just for everyone that's looking at this live, but we also are recording this. This will be available at the EBA Academy at www.eba.org. We'll create a podcast out of this as well. But I think Steve is typing right now to answer that person, and you'll reach out to them. But for others, are you available to visit folks in their office, or what's the best way?
We are. Just reach out to us and contact us, and we'll have a discussion about time, location, and next steps. So
fantastic. Well, it's an incredible product, and I don't say that lightly. I think that this is incredible information. There's lots of great opportunities for people to take a look at using this. I'm really glad to hear we've got a great amount of inventory, on the ground in the United States. And Scott and Michael and Steve has been in the background. We just want to thank you so much for sharing this product with us and sharing more education about it to all of the EBA community.
thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, everyone.